Okay, well, let's turn to Genesis. Actually, turn to Genesis 29. We're gonna start there, and we've got kind of a short time this morning, but we'll work with what we have here. Turn on all the technology. So Genesis chapter 29, and before we read, we're gonna start with we're gonna read 29:32 through 29. We're gonna begin at 29:32. So someone, if you could mark that. Why don't we go ahead and read that? That would be good. Why don't we go ahead and read Genesis 29:32 through 30, verse 8. Go ahead.
Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and she named him Reuben, for she said, "It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now." She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too." And so she named him Simeon. And again she conceived, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Now, at last, my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons." So he was named Levi.
Okay, good. Thank you, Carl.
She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "This time I will praise the Lord." So she named him Judah. Then she stopped having children. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. So she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Jacob became angry with her and said, "Am I in the place of God, who has kept you from having children?" Then she said, "Here is Bilhah, my maidservant. Sleep with her so that she can bear children for me, and through her I can build a family."
And she gave him Bilhah her handmaid to wife, and Jacob went in unto her. And Bilhah conceived and bare her son Jacob a son. And Rachel said, "God has judged me, and has also heard my voice, and has given me a son." Therefore she called his name Dan. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again, and bore Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, "With great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed." And she called his name Naphtali.
Yeah, good. Well, so what we have is this development of this family, 2 wives, and this family is far from being in a state of peace. There's a lot going on here. It's just so interesting, though. I mean, kind of big picture-wise, how God uses this very dysfunctional environment to create the 12 tribes of Israel. That's amazing. Well, we're looking at these 2 sisters. We're focusing in, and we'll move on next week. But what we looked at last week are these 2 words: comparison and competition. And what by review, what we talked about is that comparison and competition are like a large umbrella that I think all of human nature is all the human beings are under, because of the word we view ourselves as less than. And you go, gee, where do you get that? Well, I get that out of Genesis chapter 3, that the first thing that occurred after the man and the woman ate of the fruit is they realized, quote, they were naked. They realized their distinctives, they were different, and as a result, they covered themselves. That means that from that point on, they perceived themselves as less than, that something had to be added to their being in order for them to be acceptable. Less than equals unacceptable. And so there's where I get that. Right or wrong, that's where, quote, I'm coming from. And I think this whole idea is played out here, is illustrated here in the interactions and the perceptions of these 2 women, these 2 sisters. And that's what we've been talking about, and we've dialed it in that there are 2 key words that help define, or that are a result of this less than condition. because we feel less than, we are in constant state of comparing ourselves to others, sizing up. If we felt at 100% at peace within, there would be no need for comparison. But it's just not the human condition. And not only that, but there is another word that goes on that we see in the text here, and it's called competition. And so those two words are what we're talking about. And the idea of the umbrella is just simply that is our safe state. That's our natural state. We want to stay, we don't want to, but we do stay under that, because to move outside of that realm into the rain is scary. Who would want to go out in the rain? And it is so intuitive, so part of our nature, it's like being under the umbrella. This is where I am. This is where I am. So that's where we left off. Well, no, that's not where we left off. I asked we were in groups last time, and you had an opportunity as a small group to grapple with these two things in relation to your history. And I asked the question, what way has comparison and or competition shaped or helped, assisted in shaping your thinking as a man? You know, it was just the idea to get us thinking about this, because it's so far off our radar. But when we bring the subject up, we go, well, of course. You know, I don't like to be backed into a corner. When I'm backed into a corner, what do? Well, I fight back. Or I don't, in a competitive business world, I don't want to be viewed as less than. We you know, how many boardrooms are there where the leader of the organization sits around and beats the table? We got to do this, and we got to do that, and we got to do this. Well, why? Well, some of it is because for some realities, but I'm wondering how much of it is because we're sizing ourselves up, comparing ourselves to the competition, you know, worrying about who they are instead of who we are. So there's where we left it. And so there's some observations here that I'd like to point out, and they're very self-evident in my mind, but I think it helps to build a case for kind of where we're going with this thing. And observation one is that both sisters define themselves in relation to another. They are looking at another, and through that experience, they're bringing definition to themselves. Is that not true? Okay, who is the who in Leah's experience? Who is the who? Well, I think, okay, anybody else?
She is.
What's that?
Someone say Rachel?
Somebody said Rachel, and I would agree with that, anybody
Jacob
disagree?
also.
What's that?
Jacob too.
Yeah, I think Jacob, my opinion, Jacob is the primary figure. Notice her language in what we read. Everything is pointing back directly to being, my husband will love me. And so she's looking to her husband for love. Now Rachel, it does, I think, play into it, but I would tend to land on that in her way of thinking, her focus, her husband, she's trying to gain the approval of her husband. She feels less than loved. Okay, there it is. He feels less than loved. Okay, in regard to Rachel, when the tables are turned in chapter 30, who is her who? Whom? Who? Who? Leah. Leah's having all the babies, and I'm not having babies. So by God, let's get to it. You know, let's get going. Bill Hall, come on over. Let's get some babies. See, production, performance. That is her who, and she's looking at what's occurring through the life of Leah, that she's bearing children. And it obsesses her to the point where now we've got to get her done here. We've got to make this thing happen. And so she brings definition to her being through that. What is the definition in your mind that Leah, how do you think Leah defines herself? What is the stamp? What is the word or short phrase that Leah would use to define herself?
Fruitful?
Not, yes, she's fruitful, but I don't think she defines herself that way. Not from the text.
Oh. Unloved.
Unloved, exactly, guys. She, in the light of all the reality and all the fruitfulness is a blessing from God. She sees herself as unloved. There's a lot of good in her life, but she's focusing and finding herself defined as I'm unloved. And that is taking precedence in her head. Okay, what about Rachel? What is a word or short phrase that Rachel would use, in your opinion, to define herself?
Barren.
Barren, unproductive, barrenness. Yes, barrenness in relation to who? Her sister, Leah. Barrenness. So she sees herself as barren. Now she's got the love. She's the loved one. But that's not good enough. Guys, do you see where I'm going with this? Is that life is mixed. Life is not perfect, at least for me. Maybe it is for you guys, but not for me. But where is our head? Where do we bring, how do we define who we are? And both of these women are using others to bring definition. Observation 2, both sisters react in relation to this definition that they have derived. I'm suggesting that Leah is reacting. Her action is a reaction. She's taking action based on the definition in her head, I am unloved. And what is that action? What are her words? What is her language? What is she saying? Now my husband will love me. Oh, surely now he will love me. Surely now. Just trying to gain love. Okay. What is she missing? Is she missing anything?
She's playing to her strengths. I mean, it's like we played at the point of pain. You know, whatever part of our life is giving us pain, rather than just living with it and saying, I have so much else going on that's right,
Yeah.
we try to extinguish that piece, and there's always a point of pain.
Well, I think that's the way a lot of my history's been. Yeah.
Pain with some kid or some relationship, wife, or some business. There's something out there that's going to be a thorn in their side.
Yeah.
You know, living in the day we're living in, we have
See,
our
Mike.
experience with Jesus and His love for us in our life, and how vivid or how real, I wonder, did the people in the Old Testament feel about God and His love for them? Was it something that the average Leah could get a hold of, or was it pretty far out there? Were they assured of their position because of God's relationship to them? I mean, in our New Testament days, we have a whole realm of love coming from Jesus.
It'd be nice if we believed it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if we would build our relationship. You know, it's a two-part, it's a relationship. If you don't put much into your relationship, whether it's with Jesus or with your wife or your children, there's not much there.
Well, according to the language, I mean, we'll move on just because of time, but according to the language of Leah, God is very much a part of her life.
Okay.
She's speaking God. Now God is here. God is here. She's talking about God. As far as Rachel, what is her action? Of course, it's Bilhah. You know, let's get her done. I'm barren, so what's plan B? And the whole idea is that she could attach ownership or fruitfulness to yet a third party. Okay, that was the whole idea. So let's now, you, Jacob, go be with Bilhah. Let's produce some kids on my behalf. And so that's exactly what she does. Okay, so moving on, I'm looking at this as this way. There are two factors going on here. The the horizontal, big and small, are in direct correlation to the idea of comparison. In their mind and in our minds, we either see ourselves naturally as either bigger than the other or smaller than the other that we're comparing with. Do you see my reasoning there? Bigger, small. In relation to competition is the vertical. And there is where we see ourselves in competition, winning or not winning. I've called it, we either see ourselves as powerful or powerless. Do you see my reasoning there? So the horizontal is comparison, big, small. The vertical is competition. I'm either more powerful or less powerful than the other. And the other is the key idea. They're both defining who they are through the other. Okay. Where would you guys, in relation to comparison, the horizontal, I know you can't see me wave my hand over.
What is the horizontal on each end of the horizontal line?
Okay, do they see themselves as big or small? More on the big side or more on the small side? Small. And do you see that? Because they're small, and so that creates action. I got to get bigger. They both want to be bigger. Leah wants to be loved, bigger loved, and Rachel wants a flock. She wants kids. So they both see themselves as small. And how far would you say, quarter way, halfway, or all the way across to small? I'm going to put a plot here.
Halfway.
Okay, halfway. Okay, I'm going to put a plot because I'm going to put a plot right here. And so we see them, they see themselves, and we're looking at them as a group just for simplicity. Now quickly, how would you then plot them? Or do they see themselves as powerful or powerless? Are they on the powerful side or powerless side? Powerless, because if they felt powerful, they wouldn't be reacting in the way that they are reacting. And again, Charlie, where on the powerless from the crossing point to the powerless word are they quarter, halfway, or 3/4 or full?
Oh, just a quarter.
Right here like this?
Yeah. A little further.
Okay, watch this. I can erase this.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, how about right here? Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm getting used to it. Is that okay? So if we draw a line over right here to if this was on a grid, these two cross right here. They are in the small and powerless quadrant. They see themselves as small and powerless. And as a result, because of observation number 2, that is driving them to action. And where do they want to be?
The opposite side.
They want to be here. They want to be powerful and big. And so their actions are driving both of them to become more powerful and bigger person.
Mike, I'm having a hard time distinguishing big is defined from powerful, small, powerful. Well, how would you imagine somebody fitting in the upper right quadrant there?
I don't know. We're out of time.
Oh.
Isn't that good?
That's good.
Okay. One more last question, because I want to move on next week, but I want to leave this with you. What new insight, guys? It's we're talking about 2 women who lived 4,000 years ago around, but we're also talking about the men in this room, because all of us are subject to these 2 powerful factors of comparison and competition. And to what degree are they driving action, or have they driven action? What new insight have I gained in regard to the roles of comparison and competition, and what they have played in my life, those roles? So, all right.
David,
Sorry,
David,
ran over.
I've got a suggested answer.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody can chew on it. And you might balk at the original hearing of it, but just let it sit for a minute and then chew on it. Everybody knows who Kim Jong-il is, right?
Mhm.
I would suggest to you that he is